Theories of growth. I know this is a confusing topic to, I think, every student, and it used to be a very confusing topic for me too, because there are just so many theories and so many different authors, and each theory has given importance to a particular structure. So it's all very confusing, but do not worry because I'm here, and this video will be your one-stop solution to all things related to theories of growth. Hi, my name is Dr. Manjari Bhate and I'm an orthodontist, and welcome to Dentistry 101 Orthodontics by MedStudyGo. In today's lecture, I'll be making the use of mind maps which are available in our Orthodontics mind map book by MedStudyGo. But if you're still confused as to which book to purchase and what bundle is best for you, you can contact us on this WhatsApp number that's flashed on the screen, and one of our team members will get in touch with you and give you free guidance for what books to buy and what bundle is the best for you. So let's get on to the first theory, which is the genetic theory. Now, this genetic theory was one of the very early theories that was proposed by A.R. Brodie. So, Brodie was the one who first introduced this genetic theory. According to this theory, all growth is genetically pre-planned. This is the key word. And he attributes genetics to growth. This was one of the earliest theories of growth, and this was also put forth in 1941. So this is one neat nugget for you. The next is the Sutural Theory. Sutural Theory was proposed by Sicher. So Sicher starts with an S, and also Sutural Theory starts with an S. So you can remember this easily. Now, what does this theory state? Growth occurs at the sutures, moving the nasomaxillary complex forward. So he has given importance to sutures as the primary determinants of growth. So according to this theory, sutures, when they exert forces while they are growing, these forces are responsible for the growth of that part. So he's taken the example of the nasomaxillary complex. So when there is a growth in the nasomaxillary sutures, there will be an automatic growth in the nasomaxillary area, and that nasomaxillary complex moves in a forward direction. Let's look at how the sutures behave. So, for example, let's take the cranium. So this is the cross section of the cranium, and here we have the lambdoid suture. This is the lambdoid suture and the sagittal sutures. So when these sutures actually grow, they exert lateral forces, and this lateral force is responsible for growth in the cranium. So this is one of the examples of how the sutures cause growth. Now, there is a lot of criticism to this theory because there are some inadequacies why this theory is not very widely accepted. So they're saying that there is lack of innate growth potential in sutures. So in order to actually be the cause of growth, there needs to be an innate growth potential in sutures, which is lacking, and therefore this theory is not very widely accepted. Now we come to the next, which is the Cartilaginous Theory. Again, a very important theory, and this is very often asked in NEET examinations as well. Cartilaginous Theory was given and proposed by Scott. There is a C in this, and cartilage also starts with C. This can be one of the easy ways you remember it with. According to this theory, the intrinsic growth factors lie in the cartilage and periosteum. So as the name suggests, the growth is attributed to growth at cartilages and the periosteum. And whereas the sutures that were first proposed by Sicher, he's saying that sutures only act as secondary mechanisms or secondary structures in growth, and they are not the primary structures. So the primary structures are the cartilage and periosteum. These are the primary growing structures. So the example for this is a nasal septal cartilage. So this nasal septal cartilage, this is the cartilage present in the nasomaxillary complex, and this is responsible for the growth in the nasomaxillary complex area. So this nasal septal cartilage is also called as the pacemaker. Why it's called a pacemaker? Because according to this theory, this nasal septal cartilage is responsible for the growth of the nasomaxillary complex, and therefore it sets the pace, or it sets the growth of this complex. And therefore remember this term. This is a NEET question. So this is the pacemaker. Now there are some evidences that support this theory. They say that the innate growth potential is present in cartilage. There were a lot of experiments and studies that were performed to see if the cartilage actually has any innate growth potentials, and through some studies it was proved that innate growth potential is present in cartilage. The next we have is the functional matrix theory. Again, a very, very, very important growth theory. Functional matrix theory, FMC, which is the functional matrix concept. This was proposed by Moss, who is Melvin Moss. So Melvin Moss was the author who has put forth this theory. It's a very important theory. Now, what is this functional matrix concept exactly saying? So they say that growth and development in the craniofacial region are actually responses to functional needs. So there is a statement put forth by Melvin Moss, which is a very important a very important sentence. That's form follows function. So what is form follows function? It means that when there are any functional demands in the craniofacial region, so whatever functions are performed by the different systems in the craniofacial region, like there is speech, mastication, swallowing, breathing, all of these are different functions. So whenever the child is requiring to do these functions, and when these function demands are put on the surrounding structures, they react and they respond to these functional demands by growing. So that means that the growth and development are nothing but responses to the functional needs. This theory critiques the sutural and the cartilaginous theories. This theory was put forth because of some inadequacies that were observed with the sutural theory by Sicher and the cartilaginous theory by Scott. This emphasizes the role of the non-skeletal tissues in skeletal growth. So again here what they're saying is that the non-skeletal tissues, so everything that comes outside of the bones, these are nothing but your periosteums, your capsules, your blood vessels, the muscles, all of these are responsible. These are the non-skeletal tissues, and these are ultimately responsible for the skeletal growth. Functional matrix theory will also be explained in my next video, so stay tuned and make sure you go and watch that video as well. Next theory is the von Limborgh's theory. Now this theory, it combines the different elements of the genetic, the sutural and the functional matrix theory. So von Limborgh, who is the author of this theory, he has taken the different points and inspiration from the genetic theory, the sutural theory, as well as the functional matrix theories. So he's taken the different components and formed this theory. So he identifies 5 factors that control growth. Now let's see what these 5 factors are. So remember, in von Limborgh's theory there are 5 factors. Let's see what these 5 factors are. The first being the intrinsic genetic factors. So as you know that genetic factors are also called as the intrinsic factors. These are present within the cells and these are inherent to an individual. So these factors are genetic factors. Next are local and general epigenetic factors. So epigenetic factors are all the factors that are located outside the skeleton. That means that these are not purely genetically controlled, but these are present outside the skeleton. They can be controlled to a certain extent. So local and general epigenetic factors mean your muscles and the attitude of the patient. You have the hormones of the patient. All of these are the epigenetic factors that are present in the environment just outside the skeleton. Next are your local and general environmental factors. Again, local and general environmental factors, this refers to all of the factors that are present outside the individual, and these also can have an effect on the growth of the individual. So your local factors as well as your general factors, like local factors mean all of the factors that support the skeletal growth in that particular region. So again, the cartilages or the muscles that are present around the blood supply, all of these are the local factors. Now you have some general environmental factors, which could mean any external environmental changes or factors or forces that are applied. For example, you have orthodontic forces that could be applied or any pressures that are applied to any area. These are all the general environmental factors. This theory highlights how chondrocranial and desmocranial growth is influenced by all of these different 5 important factors. So make sure that you remember these well. Let's move on to some other theories. There is a theory which is called the Enlow's expanding V principle. This is a very frequently asked NEET question. Let's understand this Enlow's expanding V principle. This was put forth by Enlow, and he has given the term as a V principle based upon how the pattern of the growth takes place. Facial bones grow in a V pattern. So specifically talking about facial bones, he has said that they grow in a V-shaped pattern, and there is a deposition and a resorption taking place around this V, which will enable the growth. Let's see how that occurs. Taking the example of mandible. Now, mandible is one of the bones that has a horseshoe shape. So this is the mandible. This has a horseshoe shape, which is in a roughly V-shaped pattern. What they're saying is that the inner surface, which is the concave surface. Now, this concave surface faces a deposition. So there is bone deposition, which is seen in this inner area of the V, and in the outer surface, which is a convex surface. So in the outer surface, there are resorption. So as you can see that there is a resorption in this outer surface of the V. Now what happens as a result of this? The V shape, it tends to expand, and also it grows in its length. So the outer ends of this V, they are growing further, and there's an expansion in the V that takes place. So as you can see from this V, it's expanding, and further it comes to this V, which is a significantly bigger V. So this is precisely what is seen in the body of the mandible, which is in the V or a horseshoe shaped. As you can see, the V has continued to expand. There is another example which is seen in the mandible itself. This is the cross section of the coronoid process. So coronoid process also grows in a expanding V principle. This was all about the Enlow's expanding V principle. Now there's another which is called as the Enlow's counterpart principle. So Enlow's expanding V principle was specific to some specific bones which have a V-shaped configuration. But other theories, like how the other parts of the craniofacial structures grow, that has been put forth by Enlow's as a counterpart principle. So this is the Enlow's counterpart principle. What he says is that growth or facial or the cranial parts, so the growth of these parts, they take place in a structural counterpart manner. So every part in the craniofacial region has its counterpart. Counterpart is just like an opposite or another pair to it, which grows alongside with it. There is a balanced growth that occurs when the counterpart also enlarges equally. So they're saying that when one is growing, the counterpart is also growing along with it. There are different examples of the counterparts. So for example, let's take a look at these notes. So there are different counterparts. For example, in the maxillary arch, the counterpart for it is the mandibular arch. So this is maxillary arch whose counterpart is the mandibular arch. For the anterior cranial fossa, it's the nasomaxillary complex. The anterior cranial fossa is a counterpart with the nasomaxillary complex. Middle cranial fossa. This has a counterpart in horizontal dimension of the pharyngeal space and the breadth of the ramus. The bony maxilla, the counterpart is the corpus or the body of the maxilla. And finally, you have the nasomaxillary complex, which was already covered in the point above. It's the anterior cranial fossa. So these are the different counterparts, and it's very important to remember what these different counterparts are. We come to the last part, which is the neurotrophic process in the orofacial growth. Neurotrophic process is nothing but neurotrophism. This was a theory that involves the non-impulse transmitting neural functions affecting tissue growth. So they are basically referring to neurons, but they're talking about what are the non-impulse transmitting functions. So the basic function of a neuron is to transmit the neural impulses, but the non-impulse functions of a neuron. So this theory refers to those functions which are the non-impulse type, and these are the functions that ultimately affect tissue growth. So they are attributing this to the neurons and specifically to the non-impulse transmitting functions of these neurons. So neurotrophism has different types, and it was Moss who actually defined these three different types of neurotrophism. They are neuroepithelial, neuromuscular, and neurovisceral trophism. So that sums up our various theories of growth, and I know that this may be a lot, but if you want to revise and you want to have in-depth more knowledge about all of these notes, you can actually refer to the NEET Resources section in the MedStudyGo app, where you get all of the different notes that are available for this topic, as well as important NEET questions and NEET related notes. So make sure you download it from the App Store and the Play Store and refer to the NEET Resources section. Let's move on to today's MCQ as well as the flashcard. The first is servo system theory. The basic cybernetic flow is described as. So they're asking in the servo system theory, what is the basic cybernetic flow? We've got option A, which is output, process, input. B is input, then process, then output. Option C is genetics, environment, and bone. And option D are hormones, which have a direct bone resorption effect. So let's see what the answer for this is. The answer is option B, which is input, process, and output. Let's go to the flashcard for today. Enlow's expanding V principles describe. So what does it describe? As we studied, different craniofacial bones having a V-shaped configuration grow in a V-shaped expanding principle, where there is deposition on the inner side and there is resorption on the outer side of the V. So let's see what the answer of this flashcard is. Facial bones grow in a V-shaped pattern by deposition and resorption. This is the essence of the Enlow's V-shaped V principle. So that's it for today's MCQs as well as for the flashcard. And if you want more such MCQs and flashcards, you can go to the MedStudyGo app and access all the different study material like mind maps, notes, videos, flashcards, as well as MCQs. And if you like this video, do give it a like and a subscribe. And until I see you in the next video, keep studying and keep growing with MedStudyGo. This is Dr. Manjari Bhate signing off.